This is Naomi at Practice Financial Group. Today, I'm going to show you how to properly set up a 1099 vendor in ACS. Remember, Form 1099s are like a W-2 for people you pay that aren't on your payroll. They are a reporting tool for income earned. 1099 NECs, or non-employee compensation, are issued to any independent contractor, freelancer, sole proprietor, self-employed individuals, or attorneys paid over $600 or more in a calendar year. Also, anyone paid rents over $600 or more in a calendar year would receive a 1099 MISC, or miscellaneous, or those receiving interest income from a loan would receive a 1099 INT. These contractors generally fall in these categories: accounting and legal services, advertising, building repair and maintenance, contract labor, consultant, janitorial and landscaping, lab services, rent, and interest expense. 1099s are due to both the independent contractor as well as the IRS annually on January 31st. We will process these on your behalf. In order to properly get the vendor entered into ACS, you will need to have the vendor fill out a W-9. A W-9 states the vendor's name, address, and tax ID number or social security number. This is the information needed to process a 1099. You can find a blank copy through a Google search. If IRS is in the web title, that's the one you want to use. We suggest keeping a blank W-9 on hand to provide to the vendor to complete before issuing any payment to them. This eliminates the need to gather this information from a vendor, from an outside vendor long after they've completed the work. You will want to ensure that the W-9 is filled out by the vendor accurately and legibly with the vendor's name, business name, tax classification, complete address, social security number or EIN, and their signature and date. One important thing to note: if the vendor checked one of these corporation boxes, C corporation or S corporation, or check the LLC box but put an S or a C here in this line, then they do not need a 1099, nor do they need to be entered into ACS as a vendor. But please still send us the W-9 so we have it on file. This John Doe's business is marked as an individual, sole proprietor, or single member LLC, so we do want to enter them as a vendor into ACS to start tracking for a potential 1099. Let's switch over to ACS and enter this John Doe business information into our sample client. First, you'll click the Vendors button in the left pane, then Add at the bottom. You'll give them an ID name. I recommend typing their name or business name so it's easy to remember when you create a transaction. So I'm going to put in John Doe. I'm going to bring back up my 1099 for John Doe. I'm actually going to put it in my other screen so I can enter it as we go through. We have his social security number as 123456789. And one thing to note, when you enter a social security number, I just did it wrong. Make sure that it has the dashes in the appropriate spot, or it will think it's a business EIN instead of a social security number. So let's try that again. 123-45-6789. And I'm going to mark this verified box. This just means that I got their information from their W-9. So I verified that it's correct. Then I'm going to put in the vendor name here, John Doe's Landscaping Service. And then I'm going to change the vendor type drop down to 1099 recipient. And I'm going to put in the address, 123 Elm Street, Jacksonville. Then I'm going to click on the 1099 Properties tab. Since John Doe's Landscaping Service was non-employee compensation, not rent, a 1099 miscellaneous, or interest, a 1099 INT, we're going to choose the 1099 NEC, box 1. And then I'm going to tab over. If you know that this vendor will always get a 1099 NEC, click this default box to have the software automatically tag each transaction going forward with 1099 NEC. Some vendors may get more than one 1099. For instance, the doctor you bought the practice from is renting the building to you and also getting paid for labor he is still doing. So he would get a 1099 NEC for the labor and a 1099 miscellaneous box 1 for rent. This isn't the case for John Doe, so I am going to delete that out and just have non-employee compensation. You can also have the software auto-tag the category the transaction should be coded through the Distributions tab. If you know that John Doe's landscaping service will always be coded to a particular account, which I know this, it's going to be janitorial and grounds, then we can enter that in here, GL account. If you always pay them the same amount, you can even save more time and enter the amount here. You will just need to override the amount when entering a transaction if it should change, if the amount should change, or come back into this tab to change it to something else permanently. To show you how this looks when we go to enter transactions, I'm going to put the amount in here. When finished entering your vendor, click Enter to save. Now let's enter a transaction for John Doe. I'm going to click on Enter Transactions, and then I'm going to add a new check. Yours may say AP check here. I'm going to uncheck the handwritten check number box. Then in ID, I'm going to start typing in John Doe, and he automatically pops up here. Now I tabbed over, it automatically filled out John Doe's landscaping service because that's what's associated with this ID. It also auto-filled the $150 amount like I showed you in that distributions tab. It automatically made it, coded it to janitorial and grounds, put that amount here, and tagged it as a 1099 NEC. Then I click Enter, and I will go to print the transaction on a check. But this is the easiest way to have it auto tag everything you need. This was set up perfectly. If you have any questions about W-9s or 1099s, please reach out to your accounting specialist as they will be your contact to gather 1099s and to gather W-9s from you and ensure your 1099s are ready for processing in January.